So Apple had their annual fall event today where they announced the new iPhone 14 line, including the 14, 14 Plus, the 14 Pro, and the 14 Pro Max, along with brand new AirPods Pro 2 and the Apple Watch Series 8 and the Apple Watch Ultra. And I have to say, it was a pretty good set of products that they announced. I'm pretty excited about a lot of them, but one of them in particular, and that is going to be the iPhone 14 Pro. That's the one I'm going to get. It is just the phone that makes the most sense for me for a number of reasons. For some of the things that I've learned I can't live without with the iPhone 13 Pro, and some new things, some new updates, and there was also a few surprises in today's event, I feel. It's nice when there are a couple things sprinkled in that you just have no idea about, and we'll get to those in just a moment. But first of all, what I want to talk about is the iPhone 14 Pro and why I'm going to be getting it. And coming from the iPhone 13 Pro that I've been using for, well, the last year, one of the things that I really just don't feel like I want to give up is that ProMotion display, that variable refresh rate display on the iPhone 13 Pro that allows it to go from, very low speed when just sitting on a stagnant image to a very fast speed when you're scrolling and text just looks smooth and sharp as it moves across the display. I really didn't think it was going to be such a big deal with the iPhone 13 Pro until I used it. And then I went back to a display that didn't have it, like the iPad mini or the iPhone 13 mini. It just didn't have that ProMotion display. Things just looked blurry as you were scrolling or moving around the display. And I really missed it when I wasn't using my Pro devices. So since then, I've kind of migrated to mostly Pro stuff. So I have my iPad Pro, I have my MacBook Pro, all of which have that Pro 120 hertz refresh rate. So to downgrade from that to an iPhone 14 or 14 Plus just doesn't seem appealing to me. Another thing that I love on the iPhone 13 Pro that I've used way more than I thought I would is the macro mode. So the macro mode on the wide or ultra wide camera on the iPhone 13 Pro has allowed me to just play around with different things, to let my daughter play around and explore the backyard and look at things really close up. But even just a couple of days ago, I was building a shed in my backyard and I got a splinter in my finger and I couldn't really see it. It felt like something was in there. But I was able to use the macro mode and get right up, right onto that finger and see what was going on, and then I was able to dig it out. But it's so cool. Like I said, I just used it way more over the last year than I thought it would. It's more than just a novelty. It is actually really helpful and useful in a lot of different circumstances. Also, the size of the iPhone Pro is kind of my preferred iPhone size right now. It's not too big like the 6.7 inch display. It's not too small like the 5.4 inch display on the iPhone 12 and 13 mini. It's right in between where it should be, and it feels good. Actually, I really did prefer the size of the 5.7 inch iPhones, the iPhone 10, 10s, and 11 Pro, but since we don't have that, this is the next best thing. I think that this size offers the best overall package for comfort in hand, comfort in pocket, battery life, and screen size. So I think that this is the size that I'm going to stick with. I was contemplating going with the Pro Max or even the 14 Plus just to have it, to test out the bigger size, and I may still do that. But I think for my daily, everyday usage, this is the right size for now. Now, of course, the downside to the Pro and the Pro Max versions is that they are made of stainless steel, which actually makes these guys pretty darn heavy. You can see that the Pro Max is 240 grams, the 14 Pro is 206 grams, but the larger 14 Plus compared to the 14 Pro is 203 grams. So the larger 14 Plus weighs less than the iPhone 14 Pro because of that stainless steel. And of course, the cameras and whatever else inside here, but I think most of it has to do with the stainless steel. And it's not ideal, and they seem to be getting heavier as time goes on. And soon, I think it's gonna feel like an actual brick in my pocket if this trend continues. And now some of the updates that we're getting with the brand new iPhone 14 Pro, of course, is that A16 processor, which the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus is not getting. They're sticking with the A15, but they're getting the 5 GPU core version that the iPhone 13 Pro had, instead of getting the upgraded A16 that the iPhone 14s, oh man, there's too many numbers. But Apple says that the A16 is 40% faster than the competition. And that's kind of a weird metric to use. And I think they've been doing this over the last couple of events, comparing their speeds to their competitors instead of to their previous model chips, which I can see why they would want to do that. But it makes it more difficult to say in these videos, oh, well, it's X amount faster than the A15 when they don't really necessarily state that on their page or in the announcement. But the new A16 is built on a 4nm process, which means it should be faster, run with less energy, so run cooler and more efficient. The display on the 14 Pro is also getting a much brighter display with up to 2000 nits of brightness when outside. Now, that does sound awesome, because sometimes when you're out in the sun, you're in direct sunlight and you have trouble seeing what is on your display. But if you've used an iPhone for the last, I don't know, many years, you'll notice that when the sun is hitting your iPhone, the iPhone heats up and then the display can't keep up, so it gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer till eventually you can't see anything on the display in direct sunlight. So I'll be interested to see how well that actually holds up in real world usage, because if it's only like 15 seconds of being able to see your phone, And along with that 2000 nits for outside viewing, you also get up to 1600 nits for HDR content on the display as well, which is a nice upgrade from 1200 nits. And I mean, that's bright. And of course, the biggest advancement for the iPhone display is the always on display. We have been waiting for this forever on iPhones. And Apple, of course, didn't just do what other manufacturers do, which is just simply lower the brightness of the display and keep certain pixels on or whatever. And of course, in regular Apple fashion, they don't just do the bare minimum. They put some logic into it, so when the display dims, you don't lose your skin tones. You can still fully see and appreciate the photo that you have on your lock screen. This, of course, is going to work perfectly with the new widgets in iOS 16 that allows you to put widgets on here for quick glances of information you need right now, like an Uber or a Lyft or food delivery or whatever. So that's pretty exciting that we'll now be able to have your iPhone actually sitting on your desk and get notifications or see updated information on the home screen without having to touch it, without having to wake it up, without having to pick it up, without having to do anything. You'll actually still just get to see that. And yes, I know so many other phones have had always on displays forever, but hey, finally. And yes, every year you can expect big updates to the camera systems on all of the iPhone 14s, but with the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max this year, you get a brand new 48 megapixel main camera sensor, which then scales down to 12 megapixels, but gives you the sharpness and the clarity of a much more dense sensor. In the live stream, they demoed this photo from Hawaii where cropping into this photo taken with this new 48 megapixel sensor still allows you to see clear detail of the individual rocks on the shoreline and tree branches and details of the waves coming up on shore. It's actually looks pretty impressive. I can't wait to test this out. And that new sensor is a big reason of why I would want to go Pro over the regular 14. Every time I take a photo, it is the one time I'm going to be able to take that photo. I want it to be as nice as it's going to be. Now, I'm not bringing my A7 IV with me everywhere I go. I always have my iPhone in my pocket though. So I want the camera in my pocket to be as good as it could possibly be for the moments I actually want to capture. So having that big upgraded main camera is going to be really nice to have for the next year. So that's going to be a great update, and along with the sensor shift technology and the much better low light performance in the ultra wide and the zoom lens, I think it's going to be a really nice camera system update on the iPhone 14 Pro. And now on to some of the surprises we got from the iPhone 14 event. And the first one being that dynamic island. For months we were seeing rumors about a pill-shaped and a circular cutout on the front of the display. And then the last couple of days, we saw information about how that was gonna be blacked out all the way around it on the display, so you wouldn't see the two individual pieces. But as it turns out, of course, Apple had more in store for us with this dynamic island. This thing dynamically shifts for all kinds of different things, for whatever you're doing with the phone or notifications coming in. And this thing looks so cool. I cannot wait to see this thing in action. It looks like they've done such an amazing job coming up with different ways to use this so that it always looks fluid and part of the system. They're going from a notch, which is something that people have panned for years as being ugly and stupid, and why do we have it? And why can't you just put the camera behind the display? To something that is cool and innovative and what seems to be really well thought out. It looks fun and interesting, and I like how applications will be able to integrate with it and keep everything consistent across all of the apps that you use on the iPhone. It just looks like one of those things you would never even think about on the display. It's like a couple of years ago when people were making wallpapers for whatever phone that was with the camera up in the corner, and they would integrate that hole punch into the photos on the wallpaper, except taking it to a whole new interactive level, which is really cool. Another big surprise was that the pricing did not change for the iPhones this year. There was a lot of rumors leading up to this event that the prices were going to be more expensive, and maybe that would be offset with higher base storage tiers, but that's not what happened. The iPhone 14 Pro starts at $999, just like it did last year, with 128 gigabytes of storage. I'll be getting the iPhone 14 Pro. I don't know what color yet, maybe space black because space black is really nice, or maybe the new deep purple, but I'll be going with 256 gigabytes, which will run $1099. One other thing I did notice is that unlike in previous years, when you select a non-carrier phone, it looks like they're not charging you that extra $30 to get an unlocked phone. I wish this site would stop moving. But that's a nice change from last year. You don't have to pay an additional $30 to buy an unlocked phone. You can buy the unlocked phone, activate it later with any carrier you want, and not be locked in for whatever reason to one of those carriers. Another thing I found really surprising is that they actually are removing the physical SIM cards from the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro models, making it only eSIM to use and activate your device. Now, I'm slightly concerned about this because as somebody who changes phones frequently, this makes it much more difficult to swap your SIM card from one phone to the other. And historically, in the last few years, the times that I've tried using eSIM, it has not been flawless. I've had issues migrating from one to the other to where I've had to actually go into a store and go back to a physical SIM card because of the issues I had with eSIM. So I am slightly concerned about that. However, in the last couple of days, because I was having issues with the iOS 16 beta, I thought my SIM card, because it's been an old SIM card that I've moved from phone to phone, I thought it was having issues. So inside Apple settings, you can actually now convert your SIM card from a physical SIM card to the eSIM automatically. And lo and behold, it actually worked pretty well. So I'm actually running on the eSIM right now. And I haven't tried swapping it from this iPhone to another iPhone yet, so I'll be doing that here shortly. So fingers crossed, everything goes really well, and hopefully I can switch between iPhones at will without having to call the carrier and get them involved. I hope it's as simple and seamless as it was with popping out a physical SIM. So again, that was a surprise, and fingers crossed. Okay, emergency SOS via satellite was a surprise to me. I know there were slight rumors about it somewhat recently, but I just didn't think it was going to come. But what this does is essentially gives you the most limited type of data you could think of via text message and simple messaging communication to alert somebody if you need help and you're basically away from all cell towers. Now, this doesn't work exactly like text messages, and it can be really slow. They said in best circumstances, it takes minutes to send a message. That's with no cloud cover and whatever else. But if you're under trees or in a cave or somewhere that does not have direct line of sight, it's probably going to be a struggle, but the fact that it's there is a very good first step for the future of iPhone, or actually cell phone communications that don't rely on towers that are just around you. So I'm glad it's there, and it's going to be nice if you ever need it, but I wouldn't think that that's something that's really going to be used all that often. Along those same lines is the new crash detection in the iPhone 14 Pro, which uses new accelerometers and gyroscopes to sense crashes and alert authorities and your emergency contacts if there's ever an issue. And unfortunately, that is going to be more common than being stuck out in the woods with an injury, but that is really nice to have as well. It's really an extension of the fall detection that they added to the Apple Watch a couple years ago. And so that's pretty much it about the iPhone 14 Pro, and the reasons again that I'm going to be getting it over the Pro Max or the 14 or the 14 Plus is the macro camera, Pro Motion display, the size, the upgraded processor, the upgraded cameras all around, the new 48 megapixel camera, the crash detection, the new dynamic island, which I can't wait to try out. So there's a number of reasons that I'm going to go Pro over the others, but what do you guys think? I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say about the new iPhones 14 and 14 Pro. Also, I'll be picking up a pair of the AirPods Pro, which look like a worthy accessor with a number of upgrades from the original AirPods Pro and the Apple Watch Series 8. I probably will not be getting the Apple Watch Ultra just because it's a little too much for me. I don't need it. But again, what do you guys think about the iPhone 14 Pro? What are you guys going to be getting? Hit the thumbs up button if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.